Hey Ted, today in the garage, we got an official of a few different levels, project manager out at Custom Backstops,
Korbin Cruea.
Welcome, Corbin. How we doing, man?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me on. Excited.
No, thanks for driving out in this weather and getting to us.
Hey, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, give us some of your background, man.
I grew up in Swayze, Indiana, so just up the road here. Went to Oak Hill High School. I was a basketball and baseball player predominantly. Ran cross country for a year, which was good for me at that age. But always loved sports. Went down to IUPUI, studied finance, did banking for a little bit. And while in banking, picked up this officiating gig part-time, kind of just to have some fun, make a little extra money, and now doing that a lot. But married for 3 years now, have a 1-year-old at home, so doing the small family life as well. So it's been good, so.
Awesome. How'd you get into officiating?
Well, my dad was an official back in the day.
Okay.
So I was the kid that was in the locker room following the officials around on Friday nights and stuff. Vivid memories. I mean, it's come full circle. You know, I'm in the locker room now, and somebody will bring their boy or girl along, and I'm like, man, it wasn't too long ago I was that kid. So I felt like I was kind of already in the officiating business because I was with Dad so much. It's been fun, but he really showed me what it was like, and then he always told me to get my license, and finally I did one day, and really wasn't going to do anything with it, and actually, Ryan Fagan at Oak Hill reached out to me right after I had graduated college and said, hey, I see you have a license. You know, you want to help me out with some games? And honestly, from there, it's been a blur. I started helping out with him, and you get hooked up with the right people. And from that point, it's just been a couple of grueling seasons.
It's kind of addicting, isn't it?
It is. It becomes a craft that you love to perfect. Critique yourself. I mean, we watch a lot of film, honestly, as officials to see yourself, see how you look on the floor, how your mechanics and everything, where you're standing, what you're looking at. I mean, it becomes very addicting. That's a good word for it because it's a lot of time.
Yeah, you would you say you have the best seat in the house?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely nights when getting paid to watch what you're, officiating feels like, you should be paying just as much as the people in the stands. I mean, to be front row with some of the athletes you come in front of at the high school level, it's fun. I mean, you never know where those players are going to end up. I mean, down in Indy, those guys could be playing for major Division I colleges the next year, on the NBA floor in a couple of years. It's just amazing to see them at this level.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? A
What's
basketball
up, man?
official, you guys run about 3.5 miles
Oh, easy. I bet it's more than 3.5 miles.
Okay, you figured at least 150 times up and down the court.
Yep.
80. That's 85 feet, correct?
Yep.
That equals out to 3.5 miles.
And my knees over here would back that up. And at the end of February here, my knees and body, they're feeling it. I mean, it's a long season.
You don't think it's more than that? Like, if you have you done a JV? Because I know sometimes they have a JV crew, and then they have another crew for varsity. But have you ever done JV
And varsity in the same night? There's times. And even in the lower levels, it's even more common if they have freshmen. You'll do the freshman JV. That's really common.
I've noticed that a lot this year.
Because it helps out the ADs and the coaches and whoever's assigning there. It's like 2 guys cover both games. It helps a lot rather than trying to find 4. So, but 3.5. I mean, that's a good number. I would say I've never put the numbers down to paper to think about it, but
You don't ever check your steps after the game?
I don't. I mean, I have an Apple Watch, and there's guys that, because you're not supposed to wear watches, nothing on the wrist, but guys will take the Apple Watch part of it, take the bands off, and they wear it around their bicep and their socks and stuff. I've never done that. I know I get real tired after games at times, and that's my gauge for a good workout or a good game is how tired I am.
So when you go into a high school, don't you love it when they've got a really good hospitality room?
I do. And those things are a dying breed, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nights where you show up and maybe you don't even get greeted. So you walk up to the people taking the tickets, and they're like, you know where you're going? And I'm like, no.
First time here.
Yeah, first time. And they're like, oh, well, let me go see so
Find somebody.
Yeah, and they get you to your room, but bottle of water, hot dogs are a hot commodity now. I mean, if you get something warm,
Yep.
that's a big time. But hospitality rooms were something with Dad, back in the day.
Yeah.
I remember. That's probably why, being a young kid, I was like, oh, we get to go get free food. I'm going. But
Yeah.
nowadays, it's when you get a hospitality room, you're like, wow, this is nice. Like, you're getting taken
Yeah.
care of. But yes, you always look
Because they
forward to
want
those
you to come back.
times. Correct.
They do. They want a regular official. They want somebody trustworthy.
Correct.
And somebody that's going to come in there and call that game and keep everyone happy.
Yes.
'Cause
you
the
got
fans-
both sides,
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
we may be on the home floors team, but the same administration and everything have to be responsible if something happens for an opposing fan as well. So
Yeah.
it's a fine line. But yeah, I mean, and it doesn't even have to be a hospitality room, but in the officiating gig, if you just have somebody that shows us where we're going, take us to and from, I mean, because like we said, most times in high school, Jim, you're walking right past the bleachers where maybe, somebody didn't like what you had, especially after a game. I mean, there's countless stories of things you hear walking off the floor from fans, from players. It's just tough. So situations like that, I mean, going to a high school, if you got somebody that shows you to and from, give me a bottle of water. I mean, hospitality rooms are great, but I don't have to have that. Just
Right.
Yeah.
hospitality of treating us and letting us know that, you're taking care of us.
But it
It's
makes
a
you feel
place.
wanted, right?
It does. I'll go back to those places.
Yeah.
Fort Wayne is notorious for it. I go up to Fort Wayne sometimes on like Friday or
Yeah.
Saturday nights, and in their conference up there, like in the inner city and stuff, they do boy-girl double headers in that conference.
Oh,
So
really?
like you have a 6 o'clock girls game, 8 o'clock boys game typically, and then I was up at Homestead this year, and really nice hospitality room, took care of you. Locker room was nice, great basketball too. You can go up there and
Yeah.
watch. I had Homestead and Snyder girls. Snyder's got the Jordan Poole girls going to Purdue next year.
Yep.
She can fill it up. She's a really good player. So
Wow.
just like I said, back to what we were talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
you never know who's going to be on the floor that night. That
Yeah.
maybe be on that TV next year.
Exactly.
While we're sitting here, so it's
That's got to
fun
be
to watch.
the coolest part of the profession. We hear so many of the negatives, but the positive sides of
Right.
it. It's awesome.
It is. I mean, and you for me, I wasn't good enough to play college basketball. Always wanted to be around the game. Basketball was kind of my favorite, and officiating is my way of staying in the game.
Yes.
I love the coaching aspect and that things, but once I picked up the officiating gig, I was kind of like, this again, back to the addicting word. You get into it, and it's like I'm competitive. I want to be good, and it was just one step after another. I was getting connected to the right people, doing those things, but again, it goes back to, I think, especially at the high school level, the reason we guys are doing this is for those kids at that level, right? What those sports meant to me, I mean, you have to have the guys in stripes to play those games. As an organized IHSA game, you have to have us, and that's my way of giving back and impacting those lives and the people you run into. And it's fun. I'm young now, so I don't have the stories, but it's like, you'll hear the older guys like, oh yeah, I remember, and then fill in the blank of Division I athlete. When he was in high school, we talked, I had him from when he was in grade school all the way up, and you get to see these kids age and become good basketball players, and you, being in the same area long enough, develop that relationship as an official with them to where, again, you kind of have that, like they do in the pro game. I mean, when those guys are there forever, a veteran official and a veteran player have a working relationship, and that works out great. High school, it's a little bit harder at times, right? I mean, you only catch them, it's a 4-year window, same thing with college, but in those times, if you can really connect with those players, make an impact, and have that good working relationship on the floor, that makes everything better.
And that's, and like you said, everybody wants to rip on the refs every game, or umpires, whatever sport it is.
Yep.
But if it wasn't for you guys being there, this game's not going to go on. I mean,
It's true.
It's a fact, but sometimes you sit next to a fan, and some of the rips are hilarious.
Yep.
Hilarious. Like, they had to have sat at home and wrote those out.
Correct.
And because I've been sitting next to fans before where it hurt my stomach when I left.
Yes. They have good ones.
Yeah.
My favorite are student sections. Student sections, they mean well, and they'll
Yeah.
pick on you. And I'm a young guy, and my hairline may be going back and stuff. And a kid may say something about my hairline one night, and you turn around and joke back with them. It's all good fun and stuff like that. And but 90% of the stuff, I mean, you hear a lot of things from fans, from coaches, from players. You pick and choose what you listen to from fans, especially. But if it crosses a line, I mean, unfortunately, it's a regular occurrence where people are asked to leave. But you hate to see it, but it happens. And some of them are, maybe they're just trying to be funny, but when you're coming down the stands to yell at us or threaten, that's kind of when it crosses the line.
I feel like sometimes it's those people, they're trying to live vicariously through their
Agree.
children.
I would agree.
Possibly.
I would agree.
Well, and but the IHSAA's cracked down a lot more the last few years on unruly fans. You can read about it almost every week. 3 or 4 fans got thrown out of this game, which I mean that's a good thing. I mean you gotta.
They have your back. They have our back
Yes.
as officials. We submit reports. I mean, you think we just like to go out there and throw people and do all this stuff, but there's back end work on that. I mean, for that to not go unnoticed, right? If we're gonna ask somebody to leave and something be done about it, we have to write a report, tell our side of the story that goes all the way to the IHSA's office, and then the IHSA's office connects that school and goes, what's going on here?
So is it quite possibly in that report? I don't know how you would find out, but do you get that fan's name? Do you add that?
Not necessarily. And again, because we don't want it to be personal. We want it to be. It's really said fan was asked to leave. And then it's on the AD to do their job. So then it goes to the office.
Their home,
So
their home crowd.
Yeah, it's nothing personal. Because again, I don't want it to be like. A lot of times you're going to go back to that school. I mean, very little are you, unless you choose or it was so bad that the AD says no. It's not going to be like, hey, I threw a fan out there. I'm not going back. The signers typically, it's small enough community and amount of officials. You're going to go back to that school probably. Maybe not this year. It may be something that, hey, we're going to space for a little bit, but at some point in time, you're going to go back. So it's never personal. It's just we have a job to do, and if somebody steps out of line, I mean, there's tools in our tool belt that we can use to get around that situation. So it happens.
And even when you know your call is 100% correct, there's still 50% of the people in there that was a wrong call.
And that's honestly one of my. That's one of my favorite things. Over and back is a huge one that people do not understand. I just had this situation on Friday night. Kid drives up. Both of his feet get into the new front court. Ball is being dribbled in the back court. He then steps back into the back court. It's not an over and back violation. All 3 points as a dribbler. He's dribbling up the floor. 3 points, both feet and the
Have
ball.
to be.
But the fans, the crowd,
They don't know.
they went absolutely nuts. And and as an official, you're sitting there grinning like somebody didn't pass the test. It's like, did you open the rule book on that one? So it's been fun. I mean, in that kind of thing, you kind of have that in your back pocket of like, I know I'm right on stuff like that.
And
some of the times, bang bang calls. Not everybody in the gym is going to agree with a block charge. Block charges are bang bang. 90% of the time, if you're splitting hairs, you can probably go one way or the other. But when you're sitting there live in the moment, you got to use your tools that you understand. Was he there in time? Feet set, facing, all those things. That's bang bang bang. You got to make that decision right there. And so you use the tools and the training that you went through. But mom and dad sitting in the stands, if that's their kid, he was there on time.
Exactly.
You're supposed to have instant slow-mo in your vision, man. Like they think you're a cyborg or something.
Right. And that's the part of it. It's like in those sorts of calls, you're like, honestly, that's the fun game when the gym's packed and know no matter when you blow your whistle, one side of the gym is gonna erupt, and that's part of the game. That's what we do it for. You love to do it for the packed gyms, the best games. That's what you live for as an official.
So when you walk into a gym and you see it's packed and it's just the beginning of the season, it's a rivalry, right?
Correct. Those are the games where you're kind of like, hey, we got a referee tonight, boys, and you're going to have some good games, and it's just like being a player. It raises you up a little bit, and makes you lock in. Because let's be honest, I mean, there's games, that going into are going to be 30, 40-point games.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to do those games. We still have a part to do. We still have to referee.
Yep.
But even as a player in those games, you're kind of like going through the motions, and it can kind of be slower and boring. But then, you walk into that gym and, the two teams are not friends, county rivals,
Yep.
School district rivals. That's what we used to call them when I was playing. Like, these are going to be games where, hey, we're going to have to referee. We're going to have to take care of some business here. And you look forward to those.
You keep them tight?
Honestly, man, I mean.
Or are you just consistent, this is the way I call the game, any game?
It's there's rules in the rule book, and then there's ways to apply them. It's kind of always the way I've said. I mean, by definition, if there's two hands on a ball handler, that's a foul. But if it doesn't impact his speed, rhythm, balance, or quickness, he probably has an impact, or it probably helps him to get to the rim. So one thing we always talk about is, let the players set the level of contact. And then there's going to be a line in the sand, and once that's crossed, then we'll get that. When it does impact, hey, there were two hands on him, but the ball handler was still able to get around him and go to the rim and finish.
Right.
When it crosses the line of he had two hands on him, the ball handler tripped and fell and couldn't get to the rim, now that two-hand foul becomes two-hand touch becomes the foul. So you just kind of let them dictate what they're going to be able to play through that night, because one thing we always say too, basketball's a contact sport.
Yes, it is.
We wouldn't be there if it wasn't, right? If there's going to be contact where people fall to the floor and injuries can happen, and it still may be incidental contact, because incidental contact, no matter how severe, is still incidental contact. They can pop heads and blood be on the ground, and we have no call, and how it was incidental, the reason it happened. So it's tough.
And that's because I can remember back in the day, we were taught, like on a loose ball, I mean, it's a free-for-all.
Correct.
Like I said, it's incidental contact.
Yep.
But how many times you see that referee blow that whistle right away?
And again, in this situation, loose balls, it is tough because there's no player has an advantage.
Right.
It's a loose ball, truly. So the only time, really, that you're judging is, did a player, while going for a loose ball, gain an advantage by shoving somebody, jumping over somebody, jumping on someone.
Right.
Or my favorite is, you got one kid that's on 2 feet, and he goes to pick up the ball. He's not going on the floor. And then you got another kid that dives and takes his leg out. Well, now I got to call foul on the kid. You can't take his leg out, right? And that's a tough one. You'll hear a lot of oohing and ahhing over that one. It's like, he's going for the ball. He is, you're right. It's a great hustle play. I love it as a player, but you still, displaced the kid that was standing there, took his feet out.
So. Last 3 or 4 years, how quick do we hear that whistle being blown on a jump ball?
Yeah. Yep. And
what's your?
It's super fast too.
Yep. And that's kind of to your point. Let the game dictate how fast you need to be with those. If you have a game where two teams don't like each other, and if we let a loose ball go a half second too long and the kid's going to chuck an elbow, now we got a bigger issue. Now I'm talking about, am I, teeing this kid up? Is it an intentional foul? Or are we throwing him out? If it, becomes a punch or anything of those terms of fighting, does it lead to people coming onto the floor off the benches? So you have to understand the heat of the game, the temperature of the game. If teams are playing through that clean, and it's just, they're just fighting for the ball, cool. Like, let it play out for a couple ticks longer to see if somebody can gain advantage and move on. But honestly, there's some games where, it by the book, if there's two people that have possessed the ball to have hands on that basketball, you got to kill it. Or, you're going to have a situation where it becomes a lot more than just a held ball, and you don't want that. So that's a tough line. You got to know where the game's at in that point, and if it needs it, or if we can let it play out a little bit longer.
Speaking of that, because I've seen it a couple times, how much responsibility is it of the official to know who has possession? Because I see you guys switch pockets.
Yeah.
But sometimes the scorer's table, which they're kind of an official.
Part of us. Yeah. The official scorebook is one of our team members. I mean, we can go to them and ask for help on time, possession, things like that. What I would say is some guys take a lot more ownership of alternating possession with, putting things in pockets and whatnot. I'm not one of those guys. I don't keep it in my pocket. I am there are times I catch myself, though, of like, especially when they're close, right? Like if we have 2 1/4 and I'm like, wait a second, like we just went to white last time. Like I'll have that thought in my head,
Yeah.
Okay.
and I may be wrong, but in those instances, I slow down and go look at my partner and go, hey, Korbin, do you have white ball out of this? And then we kind of sit there and go, let's go talk to him. And that kind of comes from that. But I don't take a ton of ownership in that aspect. But yes, to your point, guys do have, maybe it's an extra whistle, a needle, something in their pocket that tells them which way it's going. I didn't. I don't do that on the floor.
I always did.
Yeah.
It was either an unopened pack of gum or a whistle.
Yeah.
And I would switch it every time the
Yep.
possession, because I would that way when I looked toward the scores bench, whichever pocket that whistle's in, I knew I'm going this way.
Yep.
Yeah, because, well, especially in the youth leagues.
Yeah.
A parent is running the scores.
Correct.
Yeah. And then,
I would say, yeah, at lower levels, it is going to be, you might want to do something as an official for sure.
Yeah.
Because, again, you don't know. At the high school level and above, I mean, they're a part of our game. They understand it enough at that level. There's still times you got to go over there and correct them. I mean, I was at the table yesterday at a small college game, and I was talking to the official scores book going, hey, they only have 2 timeouts left. And she's going, no, we have 3. So we go to play-by-play at that level, and I can go over there, and he goes, they've called 3 timeouts, and, they should have 2 left. So there's certain instances like that. I mean, no matter the level, you got to be on your game, and those are just little instant catches that you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I don't take a huge amount of ownership on it. I just, again, it's in the back of my mind. Like there'll be weird times where I'm like, I don't think this should be going to red, and we'll slow down in that moment, but I don't have a whistle in my pocket.
You getting a lot of calls from youth leagues to come officiate? Because I think that they're struggling
oh, yeah.
a little bit.
It's tough. A lot of youth leagues that I know of and help out at, honestly, like officials assigned for, maybe it's somebody in their area, maybe their kids' youth organization.
Mm-hmm.
There's guys in my association down in Indy that assigned for a Sunday basketball league that's youth basketball. I don't know if it's second graders or third graders, but it's under middle school for sure that he assigns for, and he'll send out messages and say, hey, can you come help me out and whatnot. But yeah, youth stuff is very bad in terms of very hard. I guess I wouldn't say bad, very hard to find officials, and at times it's like it's parents that'll come down and do it or whatnot, and that's when it's really hard. People in the stands, like those second, third, fourth grade games, these aren't gonna alter these kids' lives. I mean, let them sit up there.
Yeah.
They're just trying to learn the game. Whether I'm calling travels or out of bounds and things of that nature, that's not going to impact. We need them to learn the skills of the game at that level, and that's where I think
all those fundamentals.
Yeah, that's more important than did they win or lose. And I'm as competitive as anybody out there. I mean, I was a kid in Upward. I made my grandpa keep score for me when I was growing up. I wanted to know who won, who lost, how many points we had. But at the end of the day, at that level, they weren't. It was probably a mom or a dad in the stripes that day.
Most likely.
Going back to you talking about college.
Yeah.
What do you see coming from college going into high school? Do you see a shot clock?
Man, I thought about this. I am in the high school game. I'm right on the line of for/against. There's certain games I go officiate, and I kind of go, man, I wish we had a shot clock right now.
Right.
I'm kind of sitting there like they're just running around. They're not actively trying to do anything. Late game situations is one thing, but when teams are doing it like in the first and second quarter, just trying to take possessions out of the game. But there's pros and cons to it. I mean, down in our area, I live down in Westfield now. Carmel wins basketball games 35-30, right? Because they slow it down. They have kids that can take care of it, and that's unique to high school basketball. If a shot clock came, Carmel wouldn't play the same brand of basketball, or wouldn't be able to do that on a night in and night out basis. I mean, in back-to-back weeks, Carmel beat Fishers and Lawrence North this year, who are both top 5 in 4A. And Carmel, because they know the way they can play, they know the way they can win, and if we can take possessions out of this game to where, Fishers isn't getting runouts and Lawrence North isn't getting runouts, we can compete, and that's when I kind of sit back and go, I don't think we need it.
Right.
But then on that other side of the token, if we want high school to be a good representation of, helping kids progress to the next level, I think it does in that aspect, right? Where they learn to play with a timer, a shot clock in each possession. It progresses them to be ready for that at the next level. But I think I'd still lean towards leaving it out in terms of keeping basketball at the high school level unique. And if they need to learn that at the next level, that's what the coaches at the next level can
That's
teach
true. That's because we've talked about instant replay as well before, but that's these schools aren't going to be able to afford that to get all the equipment they need for that, and
even the shot clock would be tough. I mean, like I said, I work small college right now, and Crossroads League's pretty good, but like River State's conference is like IU Kokomo is the closest one here. Anderson, who's in the Heartland Conference, like they have shot clocks. There's tables at that level, like, collegiate level, people running game clock and shot clock. They can't get people in that position that know what they're doing.
Right, yeah.
It's typically students, which I'm all for, but it's like, those same students probably don't come back the next year and keep doing it. So it's like you're teaching somebody new every year. And so, especially early on in the year, I mean, it's nothing to kind of go down there and in a game have double-digit times where you got to stop the clock and go, hey, we're going to reset 20, or we're going to, that should have stayed. We need it to be back at 8 seconds. It didn't hit the rim. And it takes you out of the game a little bit where you're thinking about that. So I feel like, if we tried to take that even a step further, bring that to the high school level, it would be a lot of a headache to get going. And so I think for now it needs to stay out. But it's all opinions.
Yeah.
And that's what changes. That's how changes happen. I mean, this year we went to the 5 fouls.
I was going to ask you about that. What do you think about that?
So I like it. I officiate women's college, and we haven't really talked about how things work at that level. But you have to choose once you get past high school, women's or men's side of college.
Right.
Women's was already doing that. I was doing. We do 4 quarters, 10-minute quarters, where bonus is 5 in each quarter, reset each quarter. So it wasn't nothing particularly new to me in that aspect. But at the high school game, I have seen it. It's been positive at times. I mean, there's been times where I probably called 7 fouls in the third quarter, and I'm going, good thing we're resetting, because I don't want to. That would have been a really long game.
Yeah.
As every time there's a trip foul or a foul that they really didn't mean to do, that they're going to be stopping the clock to shoot free throws. So it's been good in that aspect. I've seen new strategies to where it's like you get that reset at the between the third and fourth and first and second, to where it's like, we don't have to be super careful for a whole 8-minute period. We got to reset. Let's get back into our press defense and really force the envelope to where, because those are the teams that could foul a lot more. Because they're playing such a tighter defense. So I think it's been a good change so far.
Yeah, because what I've noticed in a lot of the games, which it's got to be hard, but you're pretty close game, fourth quarter, 3 minutes under the play.
Yep.
We've only got 1 foul. Oh, we got to start fouling.
Correct.
So then that game really slows down, because you got to foul every time.
Yep. And I think one of the proponents is like, some people are like, man, we're not going to have like the 1-and-1 pressure anymore. And you think, you don't, right? It's like you're guaranteed, if you're going to the line in bonus situations now, you're getting 2. But my philosophy was like, hey, if he's not a good free throw shooter, he can still miss the first one, I promise you. Because if it's a 1-point game and he knows he needs both of them to go up 3, I would argue it's still the same amount of pressure. Now,
pretty much.
Granted, he can go from, even if he misses the first one, still make it a 2-point game. But free throw pressures are free throw pressures.
It is.
In the game situations, you're either a guy or a gal that wants the ball and go to the free throw line, or you're not. And I don't know that the 1-and-1 changes that completely.
And I can throw it back, when your dad officiated, it's because back in the day, you only had a 2-man crew.
Yeah.
So, every foul, you were supposed to go in front of the scorer's table, announce the number, the foul. Then they do the bump and run. You bump and run. Now you got 3 of them. And I see a lot of them where, a guy on the baseline is calling a foul, and he's yelling at the guy out top, the lead, say, hey, I got 21. And that guy, I don't like it.
I don't either.
Go report your foul.
Correct. The only ones we talk about, they're called long switches now in our profession, as I'll say. if you're the lead official on the baseline and you call a rebounding foul and we're going to go the other way, by book, it's probably you're supposed to go switch. But if you pregame it, right, like if I'm on the baseline, I'll put the ball back there, hand it to a kid and say, hey, hang on to this. I run out to the free throw line, go to the table. Hey, that foul's on 24. We're going that way. I'm going to go back.
Okay.
That's about the only time. But, where you're seeing that stuff, a lot of AAU, a lot of lower level people. Hey, that's on 3 white. I'll shoot these here. Let's keep moving. It's like
I saw a couple freshman games this week, so it's just, but they're only running 2-man crew in a freshman game. But
it's tough.
So just different little things. I'm big on mechanics. I mean, you got to look the part.
Absolutely. I mean, from the way you wear your uniform to the way you throw your hand up, it's open hand, closed hand. There's differences, and people catch you on that, and every official's done it. You go up to call a timeout or out of bounds, and your fist is closed, and you're like, oh.
Right.
Coaches see that. I mean, you'd be surprised how many times coaches are like, hey, you had a closed fist. And you're like, I did, Coach. You got me, but I wanted out of bounds here, So, but it's mechanics are huge.
You got to sell it.
Correct. You have to look confident, if you go to the table telling yourself, oh, man, I didn't like that call. Coaches, fans, everybody can see that on you. And you can't have that. But there are those times where you blow the whistle and go, oh, man, I don't like that.
Right.
And you got to go to the table and, hey, that foul is still on 31 white. Hit her right on the arm. Hit him right on the arm. Coach going to call you over and, what'd you do? Yeah, Coach, you got her on the arm. Coach, I didn't like it either. I mean, I'm honest with him. And there'll be times, straight up, if I missed it, I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to try to sit there and lie to you. But once my whistle's blown for a foul, I can't go, no, she didn't foul her. Let's just take the ball out of bounds. Once it's blown, what I've called to a certain extent is what's going on the table. So if you have that rapport with coaches and can go over there and be like, hey, I don't like that call. I'm sorry. I missed one there. We're human again, and that's the aspect of it.
They're not, Korbin. I know you just admitted you admitted you missed it, but that's not helping my team out.
And again, there's certain situations that's probably not the line. 2 seconds to go in the game, I'm not using that line. Early, first quarter, I go over to coaches I work for all the time. I can get away with that line, but late game situations, I mean it sucks. You just gotta own it, and they're gonna be hot. And that's just, you got to take that and learn from it and make sure it doesn't happen again. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing in this profession that's, being 5 years in or whatever is you have to see plays. You have to do a lot of games, whether that's freshman, JV, junior high, varsity. Just seeing the game, the way it plays, you see things. It's like, oh, this kid's going to spin on the block. I need to take a step down so I can see that. You'll come with those things, and that all just comes with learning, watching film, and then just being on the floor and seeing it.
Experience,
honestly.
We had a highlight reel guy a videographer. So it's all about angles. And seeing the floor, right?
Absolutely.
You got a favorite spot you like to? I know I can see everything from right here.
We all, in the officiating business and 3-man crews now, we all like to be the center official, which is the guy that basically goes from free throw line extended to free throw line extended. You have lead, trail, and center. Center is the guy that's on his own side in the middle of the half court, basically. The lead and the trail are the baseline, and the guy that's further to half court. Being center to center is... in my pregame, a lot of times what I tell people is like, hey, we got to have a good center tonight. Like if you're going to have a lot of high-level plays at the rim, rebounding action in like a high-level boys game like that, hey, we need to have a really good center tonight because center can see so much from where they're standing. If the play's on the far side of the floor, they can see players on the block to where the lead and the trail are further on that side. They can't see that sort of thing. They can see through the lane if they have the right angle. So I would say being the center official is crucial. And I think that's why 3-man crews came about from years ago. Putting that guy in that spot allows you to clean up the game and see so much more. So
now you're the project manager.
Yep.
Working for your father, correct?
Yep.
How did you guys get into custom net backstops? It's cool.
Yep.
I'll tell you this. I've seen some of them.
Yep.
Yeah, they're awesome.
It is super cool. I've seen the one out at Oak Hill.
Yep.
You've done Madison Grant's.
We've redone some of their home plates there. Others in this area, Taylor University is a big one.
Eastern.
Yep, we're just finishing that one up now. Honestly, it's from somebody that you had on this podcast, Shane Edwards, I would tell you, the Oak Hill baseball coach years ago. My dad was working for Pro Prince Gear here in town.
Yeah.
He was selling uniforms and all that stuff to all the schools in this area. And Shane Edwards came to him one day and was like, hey, I want you to buy me a net for my backstop. And my dad, Dad was like, okay, don't we put up like chain link new backstops? Like, what are you doing? It's like, no, don't you, like, look at the colleges and major leagues, they put up net. Like, I want a net backstop. And so, my dad was kind of like, all right, I'll buy it for you. I'll see what we can get. Well, then he bought it and it comes in and he goes, well, yeah, now I want you to hang it. Shane told my dad, he's like, yeah, now I want you to put it up. And so, Oak Hill was kind of a project that was, I think, Andrew King with his construction company, helped put in the block wall, put in some poles, and my dad put up some nets. And from that point, I mean, legitimately, it sounds cliche, but it just, from that instant, took off.
Yep.
Connequal High School calls and goes, hey, did you put up that net at Oak Hill? It's calling my dad. Yeah, I did. We'd like you to come put one up for us. Oh, okay. And then he did that, and then Taylor University, and then from the biggest blessing of ever for that company was that same time, and that kind of just we're doing this. Grand Park comes to town, and he needed. So my dad was. That's how big of a project this was. My dad was a subcontractor to a subcontractor that just needed bodies in the area. They taught us, taught my dad and his guys. Hey, here's what we're doing. Run the net like this. Run the FID, rope. I call it FID. Run the rope like this. Hang it. Put the cables like. Taught him everything, and basically it was like. He was he's out on the West Coast, I think Arizona, the guy that came out to do, Grand Park. He's like, dude, like, here, learn how to do all this. Like, I came out here because this is a huge project, right? He's like, I can't come out here for every high school and college. I just want a field out here. He's like, so taught him everything he knew. And from that point, it was game over. I mean, honestly, that was all back in 2012, 2014.
Looks like you've done Goshen.
Yep.
College. IWU, Ball State.
Yep.
They look so cool.
They do.
It's fun. It's fun to see it transform. That's kind of before and after pictures. I'm kind of big on those. It's fun to go in and be like, wow, that was a couple weeks ago. That was.
How long do they last?
The net that we hang now, I mean, don't absorb anything. They can stay up year round.
Okay.
Outside of the biggest issues at times, because there's sometimes, there'll be like Oak Hill, put up a 3-foot block wall basically with padding. But there's other times where we put them all the way down to like a ground curb. That's just basically concrete on the ground with eye bolts. Critters at times can chew them up. We got to come back and fix them a little bit. But outside of like deteriorating like fence, I mean, it's every bit as long as fence in terms of.
I've seen some places that have chain link. Well, after balls hit them so many times, they start to curl under, and that backstop, a passed ball goes right under there.
Yep.
Right under there, and they always are bent up to where you can just get your wrist in, and that ball is like 3 inches away from your fingers.
Stuck under there. Yeah. Most times when we go to. Demo is what I call it. Demo the backstop. The lower sections, when they've decided like, we should probably do something about this. Spend the money on it. It's because that fence is basically a U shape now when it should be flat against those poles, and it's not.
Yeah, I could actually see that fencing stuff becoming mandatory. Yeah, it's a safety feature as well.
I mean,
have you ran them all the way down the sides?
Yeah, I mean, so there's. A lot of we work for Parkview Field up in Fort Wayne.
Wow.
we've done some work for Victory Field, Tennessee Smokies. So once you get into that, they're all mandated by Major League Baseball.
Yep.
They've come out and said, like, you got to have it to the dugouts. You got to have it to the foul pole. I mean, I'm a Braves fan. I went down there a couple years ago, and they had nothing. And then somebody gets smoked, and now they have it all the way, down.
Yeah.
And they make it the big thing that you hear about in our industry is like, oh, you're taking away from, flipping that ball to the fan. And it's like you are. And some of those facilities like the Braves, they have like one that's a curtain that they can like pull back pregame, and, kids can still go sign autographs and interact with the players. But at the end of the day, getting a baseball, they still throw it over the top right there. It's saving the people's life when a 105-mile-an-hour foul ball is coming their way. That
or a broken bat,
and they're sitting in there looking at their phone. And that's the biggest thing in our. Baseball is not necessarily watched for a full 9 innings, even if you're there. Unless you're an avid baseball lover, it's casually watched. I'm on my phone checking the game, and there comes a foul ball right at me.
That actually happened to me. My oldest daughter was playing in a sexual tournament, and we just had a baby.
Yep.
And my better half and the baby were sitting next to us in our folding, chairs, and it was a piss missile softball. I mean, I like to brag about this. I got cat-like reflexes, man. I could count the seams, man. I just reached out. That thing smoked my palm.
Yep.
And the lady comes over and she's like, "Hey, you good?" And I was like, "Oh yeah."
Don't hurt at all, actually.
Yeah. I was like, I looked at Dee. I go, I think my thumb's broke. I mean, it smoked me, and that was the scariest thought. Is that thing coming over? Because you know how tall it is. It just like
right over it.
Yeah, just right over it and right towards them. And I just stuck my arm out.
Big thing we're doing right now as well is canopy netting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if you guys if you've been over to Kokomo, that new facility, they had an incident in the first year where one of the fields, they put 4 fields together, like we call them a quad, with a press box in the middle. The field on the far side, not even necessarily a line drive down the line, foul ball, just a fly ball that went over the backstop and hit somebody in the bleachers watching the other game. Well, as a fan, you're sitting there, it's like, oh, that's over my head. Well, that person that's
they don't know.
Watching the other field caught it right in the top of the head. And the next off season, hey, we want canopies over all these bleachers. And, that's a big thing right now is just a safety feature. To the same extent, they last and they can stay up year-round. So it's kind of a no-maintenance safety thing.
That Kokomo softball field's amazing.
Yes.
It's like that.
Probably the nicest in the state.
It's gotta be.
College is included.
Yeah.
I mean, just you think about the grandstands of a high school field like that. I mean,
it blew my socks off. I was like, where did this come from?
It's beautiful.
And I guess IUPUI plays there too.
I would think, yeah.
So
I didn't know that, but I can see. I mean, it's a beautiful stadium for softball.
Yeah.
At high school level, regardless. Take college.
Yeah, it was really well thought out.
Yeah.
Like they have a weight room in that facility too, Ted.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Bigger, stronger, faster, right?
That's what helps. Now, you appreciate seeing facilities like that, though. I mean, it's wonderful to see.
What's your favorite gym that you get to go and
favorite gym?
Throw on those zebra stripes.
Yeah. The one yesterday was a first for me at Illinois Tech up in downtown Chicago, Southside Chicago. It was a pretty cool facility. I'm only saying that one because it's fresh. But at the high school level, Stardome is fun. South Adams. Manchester's a cool place to work for its acoustics. I was there recently. The way your whistle sounds in there, that's what us officials will talk about.
Yep.
Favorite gym, though, if I had to pick one, where have I been? I get all over. I think we were talking off the air here. I mean, I've been to South Bend this week, Chicago, Manchester. I go to Bluffton next week, stuff of that nature. So I see a lot. It's hard to choose one. Let me think of one, though. I'll give you one. If I had to pick right now, I'd probably say the Stardome, just because of its uniqueness.
Okay.
Up at South Adams,
South
I was
Adams,
there
yep.
earlier this year. It's unique, the facility. I like it. It's cool. Fans, there's some fans on top of you, but then you also feel like, you're surrounded because of the upper area is kind of like over top of the lower bleach. Most gyms, it's like you have the lower section and then the upper section that just keeps progressing further. At South Adams, it's kind of like first set of bleachers and then that overhang. They're like, stacked there a little bit. So that's a fun gym. I like going there.
That's a cool looking gym.
But that, have you seen any boys or girls player that you officiated this year that really stood out to you?
Really stood out.
As just a stud athlete.
I just had McConaughey on Friday night. That ball kid is averaging like 30 points a game at the high school level. And he's good. He's a good player. I told the guys I was working with, I was like, man, he's just he's one of those kids. He can shoot the three. He can get to the rim. He can do all those intangibles. But he is what I said, tough shot taker and maker. I mean, where he'll just you'll double team him. He'll kind of step through and shoot a one-handed runner from 10 feet, and it's money all the time. I mean, not like a one-off. Like getting him back into the game in the fourth quarter, he probably did that 3 or 4 possessions. Step through a double team, and I'm like, man, that's you as a coach, you'd kind of be like, man, that's a bad shot.
Right, but
it goes in. You're like, we'll keep doing that, and that's what he's done all year. That's the only time I've seen him. But he was a really good player. And in that same game Friday night, the kid from Manchester, the lefty, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he's a really good player. I've had him 2 or 3 times this year. Can play above the rim, lefty. Player, I mean, it's tough. I mean, we see somebody every night.
A lot of them, yeah.
Those two come to mind just because I just had them. But over the year, I've had Anderson and Richmond. They have some good players as well. I mean, it's talent as a whole on the floor that you really see.
Yep.
Individual players at times do stand out, but I just see more of high-level basketball in general. I've not had I was fortunate enough my sectional was going to be, I'm a LN for the boys sectional. Our assignments just came out Friday. The drawing's today.
Tonight, yep.
But they give us our assignments on Friday. We know where we're going. So I'm going to see some really high-level talent there. I mean, you talk about, there's kids going to IU, Purdue, wherever they want at that level. So that'll be a fun one. I don't think I've had those teams this year down there. I don't work a ton for that assigner that has those schools down there, but it's I'd go with the ball kid for now. I just had him. That's probably been the best one so far.
Now, is Justin Falls, he still an assigner?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I work a lot for Justin.
Okay.
When I was first getting into this, he gave me my start really in terms of progressing. He knew my dad when my dad was officiating, so he's always been good to me. So I work for Justin Fall. He's got a ton in this area, obviously, and kind of like all of eastern Indiana, like clear out to Winchester, Anderson, Newcastle, and then up in all the Grant County area here, some towards Fort Wayne, and then Craig Hershey. They kind of work together, Craig Hershey, Justin Fall. Craig Hershey has a lot of Fort Wayne area, so I do a lot for him. And then, I've spanned the state. I was thinking about this on my way here. Just this year, I've been for the high school level. Obviously, I went out of state for college, but for the high school level, Maryville, Crown Point area. I've done both Maryville and Crown Point this year. Homestead, DeKalb, Leo, like up in the Fort Wayne area, north of Fort Wayne, Woodland. I've been down to Evansville.
Wow.
I've been down to Terre Haute area.
Oh, my.
And I've been out towards, Winchester, Newcastle, Richmond.
Yep.
So it's a lot. There's a lot.
It is.
And you don't have to do that. If anybody's listening that wants to get into officiating, that's not what you have to do. But I'm just one that I love the game. And officiating for me is I love the guys that I'm working with. It's the brotherhood. So, I may get a game that's in Maryville, but I get to go work with 2 guys that I know, they're buddies, and we're going to have a good time. And so that's what you do it for, more about the people than that. But, you can set limits and tell people on EventLink and wherever they're sending you the game from that, hey, I'm only traveling 50 miles from this address, which is your home.
Right.
And they, they don't even see you open. But mine's all the way open right now, and I like to go see people, see different gyms, different areas, just get it out, I knew the Oak Hill area well. I know the Hamilton County area well. It's like I want to see different parts of the state as I'm officiating now, and it's allowed me to do that, and it's been fun.
Man,
I'd want to go hit all those gyms, man, all those historic gyms.
Did you hear there's the report of in the Indy Star, the guy that did it, Casey Gaynor?
Has did every high school gym in the state.
Yeah, every sanctioned school now he's been to. And I know Casey, and he's, again, it's a lot of sacrifice. I mean, I feel like I've been all over, and now he's done it over years and years, but still it's like, I mean, that's 3-hour, 4-hour drive. He's kind of in the central Indiana area, but still it's like to get up, clear up towards Angola, Indiana. I mean, that's up there, man. Yeah, Evansville, it's way down there, man. Evansville's a little easier to get to now with the
69,
but it's still 3 hours.
And that's like you said, anybody think they get into this, you're a prime example right there that, nowadays it doesn't take years and years and years to get a sectional assignment. It's, if you're good.
And you got to put in the work.
You do.
I'm fortunate. The association, I think that's kind of that's step one. I mean, as I thought about this, it's like, man, if somebody wanted to get into this, step one is I loop it together and say you got to get connected to the right people.
Yep.
For me, that was an association down in Indy, Crossroads. Yeah. We watch a lot of film as officials. September, October nights. I mean, people don't think about that in the stands when they're yelling at us, but September, October, Sunday evenings, man, I'm sitting on a laptop watching basketball plays and talking about it from an official's perspective. Right. I mean, we put in that amount of work at the high school level. I mean, it takes that kind of effort, and then at the end of the day, you got to have the drive and the want to be good. You got to do the games and see plays, like we said. The more plays you see, that's kind of when the game slows down, and you're not guessing. You're seeing the same level of hits and the contacts, and hey, that's a foul. I've seen this 100 times this year or this week. That's a foul. So it's been fun, but that's the biggest blessing for me is getting plugged in with the association, and then working with the right guys that give you that tough feedback. It's tough. We say you got to have thick skin from the people watching in the stands, just because you don't know what they're going to say to Conrad's point. They might have a funny joke for you. But the guys that know you have to give you the toughest feedback and go, hey, dude, I love you, but you got to stop doing X, Y, or Z. And that could be the way you're standing, the way you're looking. I mean,
have you had a guy that you had to say, hey, man, come here?
I mean, there's mentor-mentee relationships. Yeah. I have a couple of really good friends in this industry that aren't just friends because we officiate basketball. I mean, now we go to baseball games together and do other stuff. But there's probably a group of 3 of us that come to mind. Ironically enough, one of the other guys' name is Korbin. I mean, we straight-up conversation. We'll send a play to him and go, I'm not looking to get patted on the butt. I'm not looking to get completely, tell me I'm awful, but give me honest thoughts here, like what I do, and you got to have those kind of conversations regularly and go, hey, I need to get better, and that's where it comes from. I can sit there and tell one of those guys that, hey, I'm telling you this because I love you, but stop, or that's not good, or that's not what you want to do in that situation, and that's how you get better every day, doing stuff like that. And we have an association full of those people. If especially. We do a lot of, when you're getting up and I'm doing JV games, I'd probably know at least 1 or 2 of the guys on the varsity games after me. Hey, will you come watch the first half? Tell me, give me some feedback at the JV level. Right. And again, those conversations are tough. I mean, that's where the thick skin comes in, because they're going to tell you stuff that maybe you thought you were really good at. Man, I thought I hit, my foul call was so good. And they're like, get your arm up, or mechanics, back to mechanic. It could be a mechanic thing. It could be the actual play call of hey, we don't want to call something like that. It's tough in that aspect, but you have to be able to open yourself up to constructive criticism and want to be better to progress.
And that's because I'll never forget, back years ago, up here was the Mississippi Valley Association.
Yeah, they're still around.
That's probably what your dad was in.
He was, MVOA.
And Mike Crouch. He was giving one of the training sessions one night, preseason. And he looked at everybody and he said, "I don't care if you're doing a 7th grade girls B team game." He said, "You go out there, because that might be the state championship game for those kids."
Exactly.
He said, "Officiate like that is every game. Officiate like that."
Absolutely.
And that's hard to do sometimes.
It is.
But
And again, I think when you put it in that perspective, I mean, take yourself back to that point.
Yeah.
If you were a player in 7th grade, I didn't sit there and go, "Man, I have a game tonight, but
right.
the varsity's playing tonight. I wish I had a varsity. I wish I was watching a varsity." As an official, it's easy to do that. Where it's a Thursday night, maybe you're going to do an 8th grade boys game, and you're like, "Man, so and so's got a good varsity game tonight. I wish I was doing that." And that trickles into your game.
Yeah.
But to those 8th grade kids, man, that is their night.
Yeah.
That's them. And you
Sure is.
If you take that perspective, that's kind of the easiest way to just always tell yourself, keep yourself grounded and understand you're there for those kids. Again, it's giving back. I mean, it's fun, and we like to perfect our craft and do all those things, but it's about giving back to those kids and allowing them to have a sport that, to me, I'll just speak personally, was very impactful. I loved basketball. I loved the game of basketball. It taught me much more than basketball. There's life lessons and things of that to be taught and learned, and I'm a big proponent of that. And high school sports are huge, and that's why I said I'm working college and stuff now, but I don't ever want to stop doing high school because of I love the atmosphere that you get and what they stand for and what it did for me. So it's always been fun.
Sure has, and you do a great job, and we appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate it.
You're one of those guys sacrificing a lot of time away from family to go out there and keep these games going.
It is. I had to be smarter this year. 1-year-old at home. I try to. There's
You want to give anybody a shout out?
Shout out.
Family at home?
Yeah, I mean, Christina is my wife at home. There's many nights during the week that are. She's got a 1-year-old by herself.
Walking?
She is. She's walking now within the past couple of, I'll say at least a month now. She's been taking regular steps. They were much dangerous. Now they're kind of getting pretty good. But Christina and Ava are at home. Many nights away from them, unfortunately. But again, for a good cause. And then just shout out all my boys at the Crossroads Association. That's where I'm from, down in Indianapolis. They'll probably listen into this. I'll shoot it their way. But again, they're the reason I'm able to do this. My wife and kid at home, they allow me to sacrifice time with them to do this, and then the guys down there help me become who I am as an official. So it's been fun.
Family is such a strong foundation, isn't it?
I better say Dad too, I guess. Yeah. Dad got me started in this. We talked about it a little bit, but he kind of showed me the official's life as
That's awesome,
young
Korbin.
kid. So,
well, we thank you again, and again, Korbin Cruea.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, and good luck.
Hey, appreciate
going
it.
on to this sectional.
Yes.
Starts what, a week from Tuesday?
Yeah.
Week from this Tuesday?
Week from Tuesday. So Simon's come out tonight, though. Make sure you tune in.
IHSAA TV.
Yep.
Sweet. See you, everybody.
Thanks, man.